what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Exchange on the Mesh Podcast Network, a monthly conversation about startups and small business with ideas, tools, and advice to operate your business more effectively. On today's show, can you make your pet an Instagram sensation to help promote your business? Or does it depend on your pet's grooming habits? We'll talk about an illuminating article that we've come across to shed more light on this issue. We'll be talking about turning your app into a business with our guest, Tim Bornholt, with the Jeb Mahonis Group, which specializes in helping companies develop and deploy mobile apps into the marketplace. Hopefully we'll have time to figure out whether my angry stampeding elephant app idea will make me a millionaire. Finally, we'll wind up with our Small Business of the Month feature to check out some interesting businesses and share them with you. My name's Jeff Newville. I'm your co-host and director of the Small Business Center at Catawba Valley Community College in Hickory, North Carolina. I'm joined by my co-host, Gary Muller, who is Dean of the School of Business, Industry, and Technology at Catawba Valley Community College. Gary, how you doing today?
Jeff, I'm doing great. It's a little bit cold out there. Although, with our guest coming up here, we'll think that today is a balmy day in Minnesota.
Well, we're tucked away in North Carolina, where our late January days are more in the mid 40s here, which to you and I with thin blood, that still feels a bit chilly.
Yes,
but
it does. Yes,
our guest is shivering in Minnesota, so we're going to be Skyping him in momentarily. But everything else going okay with you?
Going great. Although it is basketball season, so Wake Forest makes me a little sad, I guess is the best way to put it.
Well, we hope that the Wake Forest basketball team has a few wins left in their.
We got one.
Bucket. Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
that's
we got
good.
one against State, so that was a good thing.
All right. Well, I shared an article with you, Gary, that I had come across that was in the New York Times. It was written by Brian Chen, who is the New York Times lead consumer technology writer. And this was back in December. And Mr. Chen conducted a bit of an experiment last spring to see how he could develop a viral Instagram account by featuring his dog, Max, trying to eat his home-cooked meals. And he wanted to see how much activity he could generate on his Instagram account with photos of Max drooling over some good-looking food. If you can really blow up an Instagram account with thousands of followers, you might get sponsors interested in placing products on your account, or you might use it to grow your business, promote your business. So I know a lot of our listeners and the folks that we work with are always using social media to promote their business. So it seemed like an interesting article to see how he did. And if you want to check out his Instagram account, it's at Cooking with Fat Max. That's where you'll find it.
And who is Max?
Max is the dog.
There you go.
Okay, so the article came out in December, and despite much preparation work, he actually was not really able to grow his accounts. He sort of plateaued at around 300 followers, and he was getting about 60 likes per post, which is probably tremendous numbers compared to you and I, but in terms of...
I could say similar.
Yeah, similar? Okay, well, better than I'm doing on Instagram, but, as far as growing your business, probably not what he was looking for. And he talked with experts and followed their advice and really ultimately didn't get a lot of traction, but he did share some lessons in the article that were interesting. Lesson number one that he said is that Instagram is brutally competitive, and there are lots of options out there, and there are lots of dog type Instagram accounts out there.
It was a very interesting article and good research on your part as usual. But when I first started reading it, I didn't know which way you had it going, but there were some good messages or good lessons learned by. Basically, he was looking to say, okay, we're going to get this started and we're going to take off and it's going to be an instant success, which a lot of people say when they're going into business, come up with an idea, okay, this is going to work overnight with not a lot of effort, or just it's going to take off and I'll just be able to follow it. And they ran into the direct opposite.
Yeah, and it was interesting that he actually paid a social media service a fee to grow his followers and hopefully build it. And he succeeded in getting more followers. I think he said he got up to like 3,000 followers at one point in
yes.
time.
He paid for 2,500 or so.
Yeah,
to get
he
some
paid
extra followers.
But the likes for his posts actually went down as he was doing that.
I thought that was interesting.
So it's hard to buy yourself love these days.
Well, it was interesting because then they said, well, he had to pay more if he was going to get people to like him.
Yeah, apparently
I had that same problem.
Well, you're paying me enough, so
yeah, okay.
I like you. But one of his other lessons was that it's hard to make people love you, because not only was he paying this outside service to help him grow his followers and whatnot, and as Gary said, apparently there's a separate fee if you want people to actually like your post. You can get more followers, but if you want to get likes, well, that's more money.
Yeah.
And he also did some paid ads with Instagram. And he found that more people saw his post, but it didn't really bring in a lot of new followers. I think the number he had was it was costing him, when he looked at the advertising numbers, $2 per follower in terms of what he paid for advertising. So ultimately, the conclusion that Mr. Chen came up with was that it's really hard to do, and there apparently are enough Instagram accounts out there with dogs and food that it's not going to work that way.
Well, I think it was very interesting, like I said, because it did have some good business lessons in it. Because I think that's what he was doing when he started, saying, okay, I'm going to try this, take it off, and see how well I'm going to do. And it's going to be a piece of cake to pick up all these followers and get some sponsors and all those things. And he found out that it didn't work that way.
Well, I think authenticity is very important, and I guess using bots to bump up your numbers ultimately is a not very satisfying or effective way to build your business.
Yes. Again, for me, I learned a lot from the business perspective trying to use Instagram. So, good article.
Well, listeners, you can go out there and follow Cooking with Fat Max on Instagram, and you'll see some nice looking food, nice looking dog. Do you think it would be better if you had a cat?
Heck no.
No?
I'm a dog person.
You're a dog person? I mean,
I think Max looks good. He didn't look fat.
No. Well, maybe if he ate more of the food, there's some clams in the picture.
Yeah, I wasn't really excited about what food that they were offering.
Maybe it's the wrong food.
Could be.
You got to get your product right.
Yeah, I think that's true. You got to match your product to the market.
Well, go out there, Google Brian Chen, Chen, New York Times. You'll get a chance to read the article and draw your own conclusions. But it was the article is in December's one of the December New York Times editions, and it's a good read. So check it out. But let's move on because we have a guest
Very
today.
good.
We want to welcome our guest, Tim Bornholt. Tim, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Jeff. How you doing?
We're doing good. Tim is a partner at the Jed Mahonis Group in Minnesota. Tim specializes in helping businesses to strategize, design, develop, and deploy customer mobile applications that bring their products and services directly to their customers. Tim is a software developer, an entrepreneur, a videographer. He's a founding partner of the Jed Mahonis Group and is actually, interestingly, recognized for building the internet's most popular Ralph Wiggum fan page, the now defunct That's Unpossible, which, the fact that I'm talking to you, Tim, does give me some cred with my son. Not everyone will recognize what that is, but I do, and my son will. So you're sort of somewhat of a hero in that regard. Congratulations there.
Well, not all heroes wear capes, so you're welcome.
That's right. Well, welcome to the Entrepreneur Exchange. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your company, the Jed Mahonis Group, and sort of what you guys do and your background.
Sure. Well, so the Jed Mahonis Group, we partner with businesses to build custom iOS and Android apps. So, we have entrepreneurs, we have large businesses, really businesses of any kind that have a problem that can be solved with a mobile app. We partner with them to strategize around how it should be built, help them design it, develop it, test it, and put it out into the world so their customers can start getting some value out of it.
So you're a little bit geeky.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, okay. I'd say so.
So now, and this is just sort of a side tangent. when when I was looking back through my notes, it's like the Jed Mahonis Group. Do some people sort of assume that you're a rock and roll band or anything like that?
Rock and roll band is exactly what it sounds like.
Do you ever get any gigs like that?
Yeah, but not quite. No, but every time we tell somebody the story behind the name, I think we get some laughs out of it. So yeah.
Tell us the story.
What's the story behind the name?
So my business partner and I went to high school together, and we did the TV announcements class. And this was around the time of Will Ferrell's Anchorman movie. So we all thought we needed to have cool anchor names if we're going to be on TV. So he had a pen name he came up with in third grade, Scott Mahonis. And I came up with Jed Harrison. So when we started this business, we were thinking, why don't we just take the two weirdest parts of the name, throw them together, and there you've got yourself a business name. And we have the unintended side effect of everybody always asking to speak to Jed Mahonis if they're mad at us or something. And so we, just tell them, well, I guess that's me. I'm Jed. So
well, if
just
they're mad,
talk
I
to
might
me.
say Jed's not here right now,
Yes.
but
Yeah, exactly.
It sort of sounds like it's a Leonard Skinner situation here,
Exactly.
But I when I was thinking of it, I said it's sort of like the Greg Kinn Band or something like that. Now I'm dating myself. That's pre-Anchorman. So, but anyway, well, Tim, Gary and I, we work with people that are starting businesses. We also work with students at our college and locally and. I have to say there are a lot of times when people have come to us saying, hey, I've got an idea for a great app and it's going to make lots of money and whatnot and trying to figure out the right revenue streams. Let's start by first talking about how do you turn an idea into an app? What's your thought process as you go through that and how do you work with people?
Well, I think really the big thing that we try to do when people come to us with app ideas is make sure that the app is actually it's the right tool for the job. I think a lot of times people think it was kind of in the early 90s and the mid 90s it was all about everybody needs to have a website, and ultimately that ended up being true. I think people find a lot of value because of what a website can bring, but apps are expensive to build, they're hard to maintain, and they're not necessarily always the right tool for what a business needs. So when we're strategizing through it and helping people to bring an app to fruition, a lot of times what it comes down to think about your user, and is your user mobile? Are they away from their desk? Is it something that they're taking a task that they're doing right now with pen and paper and you can use technology to automate it? We really help customers and businesses think through how can you actually provide value with a mobile app so that you're not throwing bad money after good or anything like that.
So you're not just running out and saying, hey, you want an app? We can make you an app. Let's make lots of money for my company. You're trying to actually make sure that it's appropriate to get an app, to build an app.
Exactly. We want customers that are in it just as long as we are. So there's nothing worse as an app developer if I spend 6 months to a year building something and then it goes out into the marketplace and nothing happens with it. It's just like I totally wasted all that time for nothing. So I'd rather make sure that we're putting in our efforts into apps that are actually going to be successful for the businesses.
Well, talk to us a little bit about the revenue and marketing models, and if I think I'm going to have an app or I think I want an app, for me to determine whether it's really worth it to go through the process of developing it, do you look at it from a revenue perspective? Do you look at it from a marketing perspective? How do you help clients make that value judgment on how that fits into their business and their strategy?
We really like to look at it in one of two ways, because an app, as you know, like with any business tool, it can either make money for a business or it can save them money by improving processes and speeding things up that way. So you really have to look at it as to whether which side of the equation you're going with. I personally think that some of the best apps that we work on lately have been apps that don't necessarily go out and provide actual revenue for the business. It's more in, let's say they have a process. A lot of times we work with service-based businesses and we build them estimating tools. Well, we have a tool right now we're working on with a specific client where right now it takes them, 2 to 3 days to go by hand to build out an estimate around a certain project. And with the tools that we're building and working with them, we've been able to whittle that down to an hour. And so being able to take, how much time could you save by having people, instead of taking 3 days to build an estimate, and you can do it in an hour, that's going to save you so much money down the road, and you'll be able to crank out estimates faster and be able to get more money in the door. So when we're looking at what type of model makes sense to justify the expense of an app. That's really one way to look at it. The other way is if you're trying to use it as a way to generate money, really what we look at again is we go back to, are your customers willing to pay for it? At the end of the day, if you build this really cool app and your customers aren't going to pay for it in one way or the other, you're again just wasting a bunch of money. So there's a few different revenue models, and we can get into that if that'd be interesting for you. But there's a few different revenue models that you can go after that can help you make money for your business. So you're not kind of just banking on, I'm going to put ads in my app and make millions of dollars. That's not really a thing anymore.
That's really interesting that you're a consultant, because when you're going in to develop that app, you have to learn their business.
Exactly.
Well.
Yeah.
So that's where you can come up. Do you charge them for that, or do you kind of factor that into your fees, knowing that you're going to be able to give them some good advice?
We factor that into our fees. Up front, I think it's hard and kind of disingenuous of me to be able to come in and say that I know how to fix your business if I don't know much about it. So I think that's part of our discovery process and part of our strategy phase is we work with the businesses to make sure that we get a good handle on it. And that's the favorite part of my job. I love understanding how all these different businesses work and how we built almost 100 apps now that have been in the store. And so we've touched a ton of different industries, and I've learned a lot just by it's the same things just applied to different industries. It's a lot of fun.
So you sort of touched on potential revenue models for an app, which for someone that's not in the app business, I sort of assume the options are it's a fee-based app. If I want to load it onto my phone, I'm going to have to pay $1.99 or $9.99. Maybe there's a recurring revenue associated with it. Don't know. And then there's the elusive advertising piece out there, where if I have a great app that's getting more views than our viral Instagram account that we talked about, people might want to pay me and put ads on my app. So, if someone's looking at an app from a revenue perspective, what are the most likely avenues that they are going to go down?
I'd say the two biggest ones right now would be in-app purchases and subscription-based. So the in-app purchase route would be another term you might hear is freemium. So the app will be put in the App Store for free, and anyone can download it. And the way that they make money is once you download the app, you can see how the app would provide you value, and then they put certain features behind a paywall. So if you want to unlock the premium features, you pay a one-time fee of $7 or $8, whatever you want it to be. And then that's how they make their revenue. And there's all kinds of studies that say, the traditional approach of putting it up in the store for $10 before anyone buys it, people like free things. I think everybody can attest to that. And the rates of return on doing the freemium model, where you put it in behind an in-app purchase, you make like 3 times as much money as you would have if you were to put it up front. So that's one model that I think everybody is familiar with when they're using apps. The other one would be the subscription-based. One term you might hear is SaaS, software as a service, and that's a really common revenue model as well, where it's not a one-time fee, but it's rather a monthly fee or a yearly fee, some sort of recurring fee that it kind of aligns incentives really well, because when you just charge up front once for an in-app purchase, that's the only time you're capturing revenue from people. Where if you can continue to provide value for your customers and they're paying you every month, obviously having that recurring revenue is a lot more enticing and better for businesses to thrive. So those are the two real models that I've seen successfully work in the space.
And what happens to those customers that say, "Hey, I'm going to sell lots of advertising on my app and get rich"? How do you usually respond to them?
I again, just usually facts. I think when you look at the rate of return for how much ads bring in, if you're going to say like put in Google AdMob for an ad platform in your app, you're making like usually fractions of a penny every time that ad is displayed. And then if someone clicks on it, you're making a couple of cents here and there. So if you're looking to make $1 million off of your app, in all reality, you need to have 10 million page views of inside your app. And I'm sure you guys know how hard that would be to acquire 10 million users. It's not an easy feat. So there are ways that the ad revenue model does work pretty well, but you need to have a pretty good niche and a pretty strong audience and following in order to pull something like that off.
So probably not the typical way that someone's going to generate revenue from an app. Can happen, but probably not so likely.
It's not my preferred approach. No.
Now you probably get the question often of how much is it going to cost to build my app, and obviously there are specs and this and that, but is it bigger than a bread box? How do you respond to the question of what's it going to cost us to build my app?
Usually I preface it by saying it's a lot like buying a house, where if you want to go and get a house that's in the middle of a downtown area that's a 5-story mansion, it's probably going to cost a ton of money. Where if you're going to go and build a shack in the middle of the woods, it's going to be a lot less money. So it does, it's the classic software developer's response to any question that you ask of it depends. But in this case, pricing really does depend on what kind of app you're trying to build and what features that you're putting in there. If you want kind of an average cost of an app, I'd say the cheaper ones that we work on would be somewhere in the like $5,000 to $10,000 range. And then the ones that tend to be more robust and more filling of features, those are into the 6 figures, usually between like 100 and 250 grand to build out a whole platform that has a ton of features in it.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think it's good for people to sort of know what they're getting into.
Exactly. Yeah. It's that's why you see so much investment dollars going into it. Is it's not cheap to build. I mean, developers are expensive to hire. For our side, we're hiring right now, and average salaries in Minneapolis by itself for an Android developer are between 80 and 90 grand a year. And if you're looking at Silicon Valley, obviously it's going to be a lot higher, but it's really expensive to hire these people because they're in really high demand. So therefore, the costs go up.
You mentioned that you've gotten apps into different app stores, different formats, Apple, Android, and whatnot. How difficult is the process of once you've built the app actually getting it uploaded into the store or approved to be in the store? What's that process like?
So usually your development team will help you with that stage. They'll ask you for things like marketing graphics and what kind of copy you want in there, all that good stuff. But the difficult part of getting into the App Store is getting through the review process. And you give Apple. Google's pretty easy to get through. Actually, it's almost all automated. But Apple, they actually have humans reviewing every single app that gets submitted to the store. So they are looking for all kinds of different things. We've been rejected for all kinds of reasons, seemingly innocent reasons that it seems like Apple really doesn't like that. So we've tripped on all the landmines for our customers already. So we know upfront when we're submitting and when we're building the app, we can make sure that here's the things Apple's looking for. Don't put those in your app because you're going to get rejected.
And I assume if it gets rejected, do they give you some rationale for why it's being rejected, and you have an opportunity to make those adjustments? Is that how it works?
Well, so like I said, sometimes it's not very rational, but yeah, they do give you a rationale, and they tell you here's what's wrong. You need to go in and make these tweaks, and away you go. So yeah.
And how often does that process usually take? I mean, not necessarily the tweaks, but just you've got the app, you want to get it into the App Store. Is that you send it to them, it's there tomorrow, or it takes a week, it takes a month, or how's that process?
It's gotten a lot better over the years. It used to be, anywhere between a week and 14 days. So anytime you'd want to put any update into the store, you'd have to sit and wait for 14 days. It's pretty ridiculous with technology. And lately, it's been a lot faster. I've seen apps get approved in less than 6 hours. But typically, right now, they say 72 hours is a good time to, at the most, is usually what we've seen.
Do people typically just say, hey, I need it in both for Android and for Apple, and I would assume at this time it doesn't make sense to do one or the other. You probably must do both? Question?
Well, no, not necessarily. Usually when they say they want it on both, we tell them the cost is 2 times what it is, and then that kind of helps makes decisions for people. But I think there's a Instagram, actually, and we use this example quite a bit. Instagram, when they first started, they didn't have an Android app, and they actually didn't have an Android app until about a week before Facebook bought them. So what they did, and we call it the Instagram approach, is you start out on one platform, you iterate and you improve and you make all the tweaks and you make all the mistakes. And so once you're ready and you've got that platform figured out, then it's not as difficult to continue to make all those mistakes on the other platform. You just jump right in with your slate that you've already figured out, and away you go. So that's a really common way to do it.
Okay. And you said you've gone through you've done a lot of app development. Or are there certain projects that you are more satisfied with, or anything you'd like to highlight of some of the work that you've done with various apps?
Yeah, one of our most probably popular app that we worked on was the Great Clips app. So if you've ever gone to a Great Clips salon and gotten your hair cut, you can download the app before you go, and it'll give you the estimated wait time for that salon, and then you can just check in. So then if it says it's a 70-minute wait, which it happens all the time at my Great Clips, you check in and you play with your kid for an hour, and then you drive over to the salon and you literally walk in and you see all the angry faces of people that have been sitting there for 70 minutes. It's a fantastic app. It's a lot of fun to work on. And one of the other fun ones that we've worked on, my personal favorite project is we worked with an entrepreneur that he was an avid billiards player, and he was a mechanical engineer. And he took a cue ball and put an accelerometer into it that had a Bluetooth chip as well. And we were able to, whenever he was perfecting his break shot, basically. So we ended up calculating like the angle of entry and how much force he was exerting on the ball. And it helped him improve his game by using some of that math. And that was a really fun project to work on.
Is that something that was made available to other people, or I mean, was that his business, or was that just because he's like a rich guy that wants to figure out how to play pool better?
I think he ultimately wanted to do that, but I think the prototypes didn't pan out fully to be able to make it a mass market product. So I think he kind of kept it to himself as a little bit of an advantage over his competitors.
That sounds like you, Gary.
Yeah, that would be me.
Yeah. Well, when you're talking to people about the process of building an app, are there certain rookie mistakes or things that you often see that perhaps you could tell our listeners here are some things that you some heartache that you might be able to avoid?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we already touched on again was coming into it without a revenue model in mind and a business plan. I'm fond of saying the gold rush is over, because when the App Store first came out, people were making millions just by putting an app on the store and having no plan and nothing. So those days are well and good behind us. There's 1.5 million apps on each App Store right now, so the odds of you striking gold are pretty slim to none. So before going into it again, make sure you're talking, with one of you guys, or talking with somebody. Just figuring out your revenue strategy is super crucial. And the other thing too that I think people make mistakes in often is thinking that you don't need to. You can kind of use the app process to figure out your own business processes. And I think that's one thing that we've learned is it's a lot easier to write out something on pen and paper than it is to code it out into an app. So if you're trying to use the app process to figure out, like I was using that example of coming up with your estimates, that process, he came up with that on pen and paper first and kind of iterated on it again and thought, this would be a good idea for an app and a tool. I think sitting down and making sure you figure out how your business runs before you try to automate it or do things like that with an app is one of the biggest mistakes you can make is having me do it, because I'll charge you for it.
But sometimes you need an outside person to look at it, and when you're analyzing your business, sometimes you get those rose-colored glasses, and having somebody from the outside can be very helpful.
Absolutely. And yeah, and there's things the old Donald Rumsfeld, the unknown unknowns. If you don't know what you don't know, then how can you do better? So that's where, if you know, at least you have a base idea of how your business goes from A to Z to deliver whatever value you deliver to your clients. Then we can come in once you have that process in an analog form figured out. We can come in and make it digital and help you figure out how to improve things.
Yeah, I think if you look at apps as part of your business process, you're always looking to make improvements to your business and improvements to your processes. I assume that you probably have some clients that come back to you to improve or tweak existing apps once they're out there and they start to get some feedback? Do you have those sort of ongoing relationships, and any suggestions on how people should make adjustments on their apps as they go forward?
Yeah, I think that, like I said when we were talking earlier, we really like to have long-term relationships with our clients. We've been in business for 7 years, and we have a couple of clients that have been with us since day one. So the whether or not you decide in your business that you want to change things with the app, the outside world is going to change. Apple and Google are going to release new phones and new operating systems. Your customers are going to be see other apps and see other things that are going on out in the world that they want to see your app do. So really, I guess the best thing that you can do is just make small incremental changes as you go along, instead of setting it on the shelf for 3 years and then all of a sudden coming back and it's like we basically need to build a whole new app at that point, because so much has changed. And that's the thing with technology, is it's never ending. So there's always change. So yeah, I'd say that's probably one of the best things you can do.
Any other suggestions that you have for our listeners out there when it comes to app development?
I'd say dream big, and don't be afraid to think about how big your app can get, because we can help you if you have the grand vision of where you want to go. We can help you get it so that you can build it in a small incremental way. You don't need to bite off the big thing all at once. You can start really small and get one little feature out there to provide value for your customers and or for your business, and keep growing it from there. So and one of the tricks that I use a lot too is, if you have the idea in your head, get out a piece of paper, trace your phone on the piece of paper, and sketch out. I'm a horrible artist, so there's no excuses. Anyone can do this. Just sketch out something and go screen to screen to screen. And just doing that process by itself will really help you kind of hone how you want your app to work for your customers.
We'll get back to your show in a moment. Just a reminder, you're listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Find out more at themesh.tv and give us feedback on what you like. And now, as promised, back to your show.
Tim, for our good guests like you, we have like a little bit of a lightning round in that we will throw some good questions at you. You ready for our lightning round?
Let's do it.
Okay. Tim, tell us your favorite U.S. city besides the one that you live in.
I would say let's go with Denver. I really liked going over to Denver and trying out all the beers at the breweries there.
Okay. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Man, you're asking the tough ones. I'm going to go with yes.
Okay.
Jeff's a pretty tough interviewer, I'll tell you that.
Taylor Swift or Beyonce?
Beyonce.
Favorite childhood TV show?
I was a big fan of The Simpsons. That's why I have that. That's why I had that website.
You got that one right. Good. All right. Cake or pie?
Cake.
Last question. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
I've always been a big fan of invisibility. I think that would be a cool superpower to have.
Fair enough. Well, you got 3 right. Good for you. Good job.
Many times I'd like to be invisible too.
Yeah. Well, Tim, we really appreciate you joining us today. If people want to find you and your company, where should they be looking? How do we find you out there?
You can find us at jmg.mn. Or just Google Jed Mahonis Group. You can find us on all the social platforms. And if you're interested in this topic too, I have a podcast called Constant Variables, and we talk about technical stuff in a non-technical way. So we can kind of break down some complex technical ideas of how apps work and help your listeners figure out how they can build apps of their own.
And what's the name of the podcast again?
Constant Variables.
Constant Variables. All right. People should check that out as well. So anyway,
very good.
And you're outside of Minneapolis, is that correct?
Just barely, yeah, just a few miles.
And what is the temperature there today?
Well, right now it's warmed up. We're at about -4 right now. This morning, earlier when I woke up, it was -13. And next week, the wind chill is supposed to get down to -60. So pray for me.
God bless you. Yes.
Yeah, well, good luck. We appreciate you joining us today, sharing some great information about apps. And we really do appreciate it. So Tim, at the end of our podcast, we always have a little feature where we talk about small businesses that we've come across in our travels or readings and whatnot, or that we've worked with. Do you have a small business that you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah. So one business that we helped actually get started off the ground was a business by a guy that we met who he had started and sold 2 companies already. And he was his second business was acquired by a company, and then that business was acquired by another company. So he was stuck inside this kind of corporate structure, and he just kept telling us, I'm an entrepreneur. I got to keep innovating. And we said, well, just go do it. So he made his the first couple of companies were about automotive research. And it was specifically research around things like tires and lighting systems and things like that. And we were talking with him and we're like, yeah, we can help you build another site like that. And as we were iterating, he's like, this whole self-driving car thing, this isn't going anywhere. Maybe we should do a portal based around how all these components inside self-driving cars work. So how all the sensors and processors and things work together. So he ended up starting this company that was just a research portal for all the he calls it the building blocks of autonomy. And it's things that companies like Ford and Chrysler and all the big car companies have budgets for this research. And as we were building this product out, they were asking him, can you actually test out some of these products and let me know how all these things work, how all these radars play with all these processors and things like that. So the company now has evolved from doing research on tires and lights into the company owns 3 self-driving cars that they built themselves. And they also bought a Tesla as well. And they do research based around all these components and figuring out which components are optimal for different use cases for the companies like Uber and Ford that are building self-driving cars. So the company is called VSI Labs. And it's based right here in St. Louis Park, Minnesota. And I thought it was a really cool exercise in seeing how a business evolves from one idea, and if you just kind of keep going down the path to see where it goes, it went from being really low tech in terms of lights all the way up to now all these crazy sensors and things like that.
Oh, cool! And what was the name of it again?
It's called VSI Labs.
V as in boy.
V as in Victor.
Oh, V as in Victor. VSI Labs. Okay. Well, people should check that one out. Thank you, Gary. What's your small business this month?
Well, mine's not necessarily a small business. It was at one point. And it'll show the magic of our podcast where we had Tim talk about this high-tech business that's doing very well. Mine comes from Shark Tank, which is one of my favorite shows to watch, and I've been watching it for, 9 or 10 years now. And it's called Manscaped.
Yeah.
Which was a winner on Shark Tank, getting Mark Cuban and Robert Herjavec to invest in their male grooming products for below the waist.
Okay.
It's a little bit outside my comfort zone for a lot of reasons.
No, we're gonna go further outside your comfort zone, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, it's a growing market. It's one that more men are considering. It may not be where all other grooming products are that we have, but as you know, men are getting more and more comfortable going outside their comfort zone to get more things to make them look good, just like their wives. So we think in the near future that they're probably going to be in a lot of places that they've never been before. No, don't worry. I'm not going to ask you if it's in your closet already. But in a few years, it may be. Or it may be just like clippers for our hair, our ears, hair color, lotions, all those things. And by the way, Manscaped does have lotions and things they do to help their body and all those things that men might want to do. As an interesting aside, the company, as I said, they were almost out of business when they got started, before they got to Shark Tank. But then they started using humor to highlight the accidents that happen when you're not using the right tool for the job. The good news is they're doing well, even though they were a hair from going under.
I got that. Go ahead.
You got that good.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And they have escaped the failure of Manscaped.
Okay.
And they have 2 customers from Shark Tank.
So if I Google Manscaped, will the college firewall allow me to visit it?
I was thinking about that when I was researching over the week.
Okay. Well,
can you go forward?
I might even one up you. Who knows?
Oh, God bless.
So the small business that I'm going to highlight today, which I read an article in a newspaper this week that I found out about it. It's a company called Lora, Lora DiCarlo, DiCarlo, Laura DiCarlo. It's a woman-run startup which is working to change the face of pleasure products. They are proudly sex positive and gender inclusive, and their goal is to create products and educational resources that promote female sexual empowerment. They've already raised $1.2 million in funding and grants in 2018 and partnered with Oregon State University's College of Engineering to develop a range of products to close the orgasm gap and make blended orgasms a right rather than a reach. And Laura Haddock is the founder and CEO, has over a decade of experience in healthcare. She was in the U.S. Navy. She is a self-described anatomy geek and has done much research into the topic of female orgasm. She left med school to design functional product specifications determined to produce the perfect orgasm, drawing on years of research and data gathered from women. Now, you might be asking why I brought this one up and how I found out about this.
Yes, I have been thinking about that as you were talking.
Okay, so here's how I found out about it. The article that I read in the newspaper, also the New York Times. You can see. You think I'm working? I'm just
you do a lot of research.
Do a lot of research. It's research, right? Was about their new product called OSE, O-S-E, with a little accent over the E, which is a hands-free sex toy for women, which was exhibited at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas this January, and initially won the show's Robotics Innovation Award. The product is designed to produce a blended orgasm. You can just read the article if you want to know what that is. And it's got 8 patents pending and was built by a team of engineers, including people who specialize in robotics and artificial intelligence. But 3 weeks after receiving their award, they received a letter from the Consumer Technology Association saying that their product had been disqualified because it was deemed immoral, obscene, indecent, and profane, and not keeping with the Consumer Technology Association image. And this has created quite the controversy because of potential gender bias in the way they look at these things. And the company is accusing the Consumer Technology Association of gender bias, and they've actually backed off a bit from their initial thing. They've sort of changed their story now, saying that the product didn't fit into the robotics category, but it seems that it probably does. But regardless of all that, our job is to focus on new and interesting businesses. And I found that this was a interesting business and
very interesting.
So my story, we don't rehearse this, so we don't really know what we're coming to the table with.
It's amazing that we
both went below the belt, and we actually
independent research. We could match maybe the products together.
Who knows? And as I said, the name of the place you can find mine is www.Laura, L-O-R-A, DiCarlo, D-I-C-A-R-L-O.com, and it includes information about their business as well as about this specific controversy. Now, Gary, I was concerned that this small business could be a little risque for our podcast, so I ran it by my wife before we taped the show, make sure it was okay. Her first response was, "What is this orgasm thing you speak of?" But then she read the article and reminded me that Valentine's Day is coming up. So
there you go. Well, that's good. Well, I had thought the same thing, although I thought mine was risque until I just heard what yours was.
Okay. Well.
And my wife was the one that suggested using Manscaped because we watched Shark Tank together, and she said she thought that would be something that would be worthwhile talking about because it was a really good idea. And of course, she's a cosmetology instructor, and with our school, and
are you suggesting our school might offer a program?
Well, I hadn't thought about
that,
but I mean, she's always looking to see how we can help men and women feel better about themselves.
Okay.
I think yours is probably a little bit further down the road than Manscaped, but similar in concept.
Well, I mean, where do you come out on female orgasms? Are you for or against them?
I think it's a good thing.
Okay, well, good for you.
I was trying to handle that the best way possible.
You're an enlightened man.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, look, if you've got a suggestion for the Entrepreneur Exchange Small Business of the Month, please email them to us at eexchange@themesh.tv. And if we use yours, you'll get a prize pack, which will not include anything that we've discussed today in the prize pack. So, anyway.
Well, I'm glad we're on a podcast because I'm sure my face is probably red.
A little bit, yes. We want to thank Tim Bornholt. Tim, thank you so much for joining us today with the Jed Mahonis Group. We appreciate it.
And he'll probably
Thank you very much for having
be
me.
back with us again.
Please do. Yeah, I'll make sure that my my small business pick is a little more on topic. I didn't realize you guys were going so far below the belt.
We have never done it before.
Yeah, well,
Well, of course, we don't live in Minnesota, so
this could be our last
That's fair.
podcast, Tim, for all we know. So anyway, we appreciate you joining us. You can check out all the podcasts from the Mesh Network at themesh.tv, and there are a lot of things you should be listening to, so check those out. Subscribe to the Entrepreneur Exchange by visiting iTunes or many of the usual suspect podcast sites. We appreciate you listening, and we hope that we'll be talking with you again next month.
I'm trying to raise the level in the
go.
next month.
All right. Thanks a lot.
You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.